Then we start the roundtable, and it's not coincidental that we are not running a panel. We haven't announced it as a panel because we would like to engage in a dialogue over projects, over institutions that have been important for institutionalization of the Baltic Sea region in several domains. We have been gathered here because of the Cultural Pulse project, which gave rise to our coming together in this group. Some of you might have heard of the Cultural Pulse project before, some of you didn't. But it's an Interreg funded project. It aims to promote culture-driven social resilience in local communities. It relies on understanding for how culture can help in a strategic way to build social cohesion. I will leave space to the colleagues to talk about details of the project, but first we'll start with the respective institutions which have contributed to it or which run it. So who we are. My name is Kazimierz Musiał. Working currently as a senior advisor for the priority area regional identity at the Council of the Baltic Sea States. And my area of expertise and my area of daily duties and work is to cater for cultural, educational and youth engagement activities in the Council. Next to me is my colleague.
My name is Felix Schartner Giertta, and I also work at the Council of the Baltic Sea States in Stockholm as a project coordinator.
Krista.
So, my name is Krista Petäjäjärvi. I work for the Northern Dimension Partnership on Culture Secretariat in Riga, but I'm based in Helsinki myself.
Hello, my name is Zanete Eglite. I'm from the Danish Cultural Institute, which is located in Denmark, but I'm Latvian myself.
Hi, and I'm Franziska Kapteina. I'm from Schleswig-Holstein, which is the northernmost federal state of Germany, and we're also part of the project and I'm here as a representative of the Ministry of European Affairs there.
And because it's a roundtable, we have decided that we will first let the representatives of the institutions to present the institutions as we normally do on what they, if you have heard of them, fine. If you haven't heard of them, or perhaps some dimensions of their work you haven't heard of, this is exactly here and now that it's coming. And then we will also engage in a discussion on the particular topic of societal resilience, to what extent these institutions deliver on this particular dimension. But we start with the Council of the Baltic Sea States.
Right. Thank you. So the Council of the Baltic Sea States is an international governmental organization. It is multilateral regional cooperation, and it mainly deals in political cooperation on the one side, or political dialogue on the one side, and practical cooperation on the other side. So that in practice that means on the one hand expert groups or task forces from the member states with representatives from the member states, and on the other hand practical implementation such as projects and the like. It was founded, just very briefly, in 1992 by a ministerial declaration, so not a treaty-based organization. And it consists of 10 member states, all of the states around the Baltic Sea, including Iceland and Norway. It no longer includes Russia, who were suspended and then withdrew in 2022. And it also includes, or it does include, the European Union through the External Action Service.
Priorities?
Priorities are 3 currently set by the Council. The first one being a safe and secure region, dealing mainly with civil protection, trafficking, child protection. Secondly, sustainable and prosperous region, dealing with sustainable development or localization of Agenda 2030 and things like that. And lastly then, regional identity, which is Kazimierz and my unit, dealing with or through culture, education and youth involvement.
Then we go to the Danish Cultural Institute. Zanete?
Thank you. As the name already states, we are located in Denmark, but we also have a branch in Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, which is celebrating 35 years, which is actually the same age as Latvia has. And we work mostly with cultural projects, with also collaboration within cultural and creative industries, sustainability, and also projects in the international level. So we create those solutions together. We are more like practical, hands-on consultation organization. Next slide, please. And yes, we work with international partnerships, with sustainability, youth and innovation, and also freedom of expression, which could be also human rights. And our core activities, aside from global presence, are support and co-creation of cultural projects, capacity building, which includes training, network development and institutional cooperation, as well as project manager, cultural diplomacy, debates and communication. And the next one, we go to NDPC.
Yes, thank you very much. We go to the Northern Dimension Partnership on Culture. Krista, please.
Yes, so NDPC, we are established in 2010 as one of the, you could say, sector-specific partnerships under the Northern Dimension policy umbrella. And our sector is then limited to culture. We have a secretariat that is based in Riga, but our member countries are the countries around the Baltic Sea. Russia has been suspended since 2022, and we are happy that Ukraine stepped in as an observer country last June. So I would say that we operate especially with the mission of how to connect art, culture and creative industries to issues of sustainability in our region. Thinking that the art, culture and creative fields is a very diverse field. We are a quite small organization with 6 people working for this mission. So we are specified in connecting our sector into sustainability and innovation in our region. We are quite flexible in how we do that. And for us it means that we are facilitating networks and knowledge sharing. We are prototyping new methodologies. We are adding to skill building and trainings and also some knowledge production. We are supporting policy making, but also practitioners. And how we actually think that art, culture and creative fields can have a meaning in sustainability, for us it is about cross-sectorial collaborations. How we actually step in from the own art and culture bubble to work in collaboration with the diverse fields like health, science, public policies, urban development and so forth. So we are very specifically building the expertise in this area, and this is also our role in the Cultural Pearls project. And just to mention about the funding, we have a small base funding from our member states and legally binded member states, thinking that the ministries of cultures of our member states are our primary stakeholders. But in minimum, I would say 80% of our funding is something we fundraise. So we work with diverse EU fundings, and the projects is the way for us to implement our strategy.
Thank you very much, Krista. And Franziska.
So I'm here as a representative of the regional level, and I'm here from Schleswig-Holstein, one of the federal states of Germany, and active and represented as a region on the EU level. And Schleswig-Holstein has in fact a long history of engaging in Baltic Sea region cooperation, very evident in the late 80s and early 90s with a bottom-up region building approach based on the new regionalism approach. A very distinctive figure was Prime Minister Björn Engholm, who brought the idea of the new Hanse then, and the Mare Balticum. Maybe some people still know these concepts. And some of the initiatives founded during these times exist until today, and some examples would be the cultural network As Baltica, and also the Baltic Sea Subregional Cooperation, BSSC. And in fact, our region is holding the chair of BSSC right now and also hosting the secretariat. So we're with the secretariat right now in the ministry. And this organization, BSSC, is a political network of regional authorities of the 9 Baltic Sea littoral states, founded 1993 on the Stavanger Declaration, and organizing cooperation between the different regions in the Baltic Sea region. And we are also active on the macro-regional level, as we have the coordination of the policy area culture of the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region, together with the Adam Mickiewicz Institute in Poland, and actively engage in the strategy through that. And we are also part of the Culture project, of course, which will be presented later. Next slide. Yeah, very briefly, some priorities and activities. This is relating to the priorities and activities of our ministry, meaning of the area we work in, the Baltic Sea region cooperation. We, of course, have a very heavy focus on culture, which always played an important role for us in the integration of the region, as it's highly adaptable and transferable, and is a good way to connect across borders. And it also has a high communicative component and can penetrate through different levels of society down to the individual level, which is very important for our work as a region. And just a way to communicate the message of cooperating and connecting, and to bring this message to the people of the region. We also engaged in various youth formats, like BSSC Youth, but also we also have a Baltic Sea Region hackathon, and work together with CBSE a lot in this area. We are engaged in recovering dumped munition from the Baltic Sea, and also are part of STRING, which is a political member organization that aligns to accelerate the green transition and to unlock new potential of green growth. We are also trying to accelerate democracy within our region with some events like the Fehmarn Belt Days, which I present later. And last but not least, we also have a cooperation with Ukraine, as we have a regional partnership with the Ukrainian region, Kherson.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation, and I sense you already see a certain common thread in what binds these communities, these societies, I would say, but also, well, first and foremost, these institutions together. What we have witnessed at the outset of the Cultural Pulse project was that we tried to answer a pressing need of the day in the political life, in the social life, and that's why this resilience concept that has dominated the public discourse for a few years now has become also a challenge to overcome through the intervention of culture. And it's important to underline that this concept, as many concepts in the social sciences, has enjoyed an unprecedented career. I mean, if you talk about resilience 10 years ago, you would probably talk to the physicists or guys from chemistry, and it would be about the ability of materials to bounce back more or less to the shape that it was there before the intervention or some kind of a crash took place, right? Thinking about the social resilience, not societal ones, but social resilience, this has been translated into other domains of psychology, psychiatry, also social life, thinking about the individuals more or less to come to terms with their reality they cannot influence, they have to face, they have to bind, but then somehow they have to bounce back, perhaps bounce back better. That was the idea coming from the individual experience of those who dealt with the resilience issues 5 years ago, perhaps. And then comes the term societal resilience, which is an attempt to transfer the individual experience to the society level. And then we start talking about societal resilience as a concept for understanding of the world we live in today. And of course, why it is so? Well, for once you see pretty many challenges on the horizon. You've got the global dimension, you've got the economic challenges, you've got the demographic one, you've got the social inclusion. So it seems that there is a number of factors, stresses, factors which influence the collapse of the traditional structures, right? There is something that we do not have an influence on, but we might possibly wish, if we are scientists, politicians, social actors, to help the societies to bounce back in these particular domains. This is by no means an exclusive list, just to mention a few things that are on the horizon or are within the discursive field when we talk about social and societal resilience. And then there might be a question to what extent institutions can be responsive, adaptive, and or transformative. I mean, we are from the institutions and the social institutions at the individual level, but also societal institutions, be it governments, being the municipalities, they also talk about becoming resilient. Becoming resilient, what does it mean? Well, you have either to respond to what has happened, to a crash, you have to deploy some contingency measures. Contingency planning has to be there. You possibly have to adapt, especially the war in Ukraine has shown that certain life functions of the societies have to be maintained despite the disruptions. And possibly, this is the bouncing back element from the theory, well, you have to transform the society to become more resilient, perhaps better than it used to be before. But anything that can be defined as a social challenge that was unprecedented, unpredictable, unpredicted, is something that signifies the crisis that can be overcome. And when we talk about social societal resilience, we talk about the ability of a community, a society, to go over the period of crisis, bounce back better. And this is exactly what I'd like the panelists here, the colleagues, to give us an answer to what extent the institutions they come from are able to transform, to be responsive, to be transformative. But before we do that, we will narrow down the scope and tell you about the Cultural Pearls project, which Felix has coordinated, and where these issues were voiced, discussed, and to what extent we have come to a solution of them, I don't know, but we know that culture can do wonders. Felix.
Thank you. So, very briefly about the Cultural Pearls project as a sort of context in which we can refer to in the coming discussion, the project that we are all partners in. So Cultural Pearls is made possible through Interreg Baltic Sea region, first of all. Our mission is essentially to foster the strategic use of culture and creativity to stimulate social cohesion or social resilience in local communities. And our target would be small and medium-sized towns. And the logic here is, of course, that all places, all cities, all towns face challenges on the global level. You mentioned it, be it COVID, be it climate change, be it war in Ukraine. But the smaller and medium-sized towns on top of that also face issues of depopulation or brain drain and other structural labor market, access to education. You could summarize it, I guess, as sort of the pull factor of the larger cities around. And so local authorities need to address this, but the toolbox is quite limited. At the same time, we know that the building blocks of resilience are the same essential building blocks of well-being and the dynamic places, meaning things like trust, like belonging, a sense of belonging, but also democratic participation or inclusion in the collective sort of life, communal life. And so the question is, how do we address that? So for the project, simply put, this is about, the assumption here is that cities both can and should strategically address the issue of social cohesion, and that culture and creativity in a wide sense is a very effective tool to do so. Now, why culture? I think we have a slide on this. We usually talk about it in the following ways. First of all, culture, again in the wide sense, acts as a gateway, as a low threshold invitation for people to join into something whatsoever, basically. Secondly, it can function as a spark. It raises new questions. It challenges our beliefs. It stimulates our risk-taking, experimentation, our capacity to innovate, etc. Then, of course, it creates a space for people to meet, interact, co-create, a space that doesn't exist really outside the field of sort of culture, I would say. And then lastly, and I think increasingly salient, the question of heritage. I mean, we saw it in Ukraine with the targeting of Ukrainian cultural heritage, but the role of cultural heritage as the bearer of identities or the backbone of a community. And so these are some of the explanations why culture seems to be a good tool to foster social cohesion, social resilience. Now, in practice, very simply, this is a competition for a title. This is the way we get the cities to want to engage with us. So they apply, they then, together with us, develop an action plan for the upcoming title year. And then a jury selects the best action plans. Those are awarded the title of Cultural Pearl for the next year. And we then offer a bunch of support during that title year to sort of boost the impact of their actions. And so, just as an example, you can just scroll through the pictures. In the little more than 2 years that we've been running, we've had close to 50 towns and cities submitting applications, and keeping in mind that there is absolutely no prize money or other financial reward for this. Just goes to show that there's evidently an interest or a need for this kind of action. So that was very briefly, and I think we get the chance to go into more details about what kind of support we offer, etc. That's the gist of the Cultural Pearls project.
Right, just a few more pictures from it, showing that it doesn't matter which time of the year it is, the citizens of these smaller places are willing to go out and interact with each other. And I think the real new kind of Baltic Sea regionalism perhaps is seen here when you look at on those unusual suspects in the Baltic Sea region which claim to belong to the region. I mean, it's a redefinition of the region by the fact that we are not mentioning the capital cities, just on the opposite. We go to the communities which do not exceed 200,000 inhabitants. In some cases, we deal with communities that have, how many? 3?
4, yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5,000.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not about the numbers, it's about the patterns of introducing culture as a tool and as an asset for building the social cohesion, right?
But just to add that, what it does in these smaller places, of course, is that it immediately creates, it gives them, of course, some international visibility and recognition for their work, but it immediately infuses them with some sort of focus and momentum on the task at hand. Now they've been chosen, now this is the issue on the table, strategically approaching social cohesion in our community, and that alone gives quite a lot of momentum to start with.
Mm-hmm. While you are speaking, Felix, I would ask you to continue on the Council of the Baltic Sea States and tell us to what extent you see the institution as being adaptive, transformative, just getting the things normalized, or perhaps using culture for bouncing back better, so to speak, after the numerous crises.
Well, if I start with how the project works as in this, why we engage in this kind of project, I would say there are three main motivators, you could say. So first, I think, yes, they're up there. So first, we're talking about exploring the space of social resilience in the wider resilience narrative. I'll get into what I mean by that. Second, of course, we're very much interested in the regional interconnectedness on a local and regional level, binding the region together. And thirdly, it's about engaging with and supporting Ukraine. So briefly, firstly, this exploring social resilience. You mentioned it. We've been in a sort of perpetual crisis for the past decade, at least it feels. I'm talking about COVID, Russia, financial crisis, inflation, migration, you name it.
Well, if you listen to the media, it's the polycrisis,
yes,
right?
Polycrisis, we can call it that. So evidently there's a need to ensure that our societies are robust enough to withstand these challenges and adaptable enough to sort of overcome them and build a better future, as you mentioned in the outset. So in light of the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine, of course, there's been a massive political shift in the priorities of the region. We're now talking about resilience, security, civil preparedness, but also increasingly the whole of society approach and the necessity of not only the state or the authorities, but also the individual and the communities engaging in or being part of what then becomes societal resilience, right? So this raises the fundamental questions that I mentioned before of what this really consists of. Where does a willingness to defend come from? Where does a sense of belonging come from? How do I trust my neighbors? Why do I do that? And all of these things that we hear lip service being paid to are essential components of resilience, if not of national security. Now, of course, we all understand that neither the military nor the civil contingencies, agencies, etc., have the mandate nor the tools to go out into the towns and villages and create social cohesion. So the question then is, who does it and how do they do it? And I would say that here is a massive gap how this social dimension of national security, if you will, is actually works in practice, and whose responsibility is it? So I would say that's the first main motivator for us to look into how can this question be approached from this angle through a project like Cultural Pearls. Then secondly, interconnectedness. Cultural Pearls is of course a lot about the local impact in the city selected, but we do it through regional exchange, through peer learning, through talking about how to practically implement your action plan. How do you deal with getting this and this target group engaged? How do you deal with elders? How do you deal with, and so on and so forth. I mean, nothing new that we are trying to foster regional exchange, but it's very much in our toolbox in this.
So it's the transformative part you're speaking about, rather than the adoptive part,
right,
or adaptive part.
Absolutely, sure. And in that sense, it's of course no coincidence that we select several pearls for each title year, so that there is a cohort of pearls that can exchange. I mean, otherwise it's quite common that you have someone or something winning a prize or a title, but in this case we aim to have several of them so that they have a group in which they can exchange. And then we mentioned we're in regional identity. It's a term that sometimes raises eyebrows, but to me this transnational aspect is essentially works along the same lines as the resilience on a local level, meaning that the interconnectedness, the trust that we build, the social relations, etc., this is what makes the region stronger, what makes us more prepared, and what yields this sort of transformative, latent perhaps transformative capacity in the region. I'm
tempted to say that it perhaps gives a second life to the soft security being let out of the scene and then still being present in the minds of the people and in the actions of the individuals. But let's leave it for the discussion to what extent it is a manifestation of soft security. Let's go to...
Can I just
yes.
The third point, engaging with Ukraine, because there was a clear message from the political leadership that they wanted us to investigate or look for opportunities to also support Ukraine. And with the help of the Swedish Institute and their Baltic Sea Neighborhood Program, we could create another project, attach it to Baltic Sea Cultural Pearls, essentially allowing us to bring city representatives from Ukraine to the Baltic Sea Cultural Pearls events, but also very much looking at creating a platform for exchange on their very practical experience of community resilience in crises.
Right, it's a real...
So it's about mutual learning and not...
applied
only,
resilience of the communities that can be observed there. We go to Zanete and the Danish Cultural Institute. To what extent, if you keep these three qualities of capacities of organization in mind, which one would you say is the most pronounced in your work, and to what extent it's somehow you prioritize? Which of them do you prioritize?
Yes, as Danish Cultural Institute, we work with transnational exchange, first of all, which includes webinars, forums, mentoring, which is really important, also local support and special learning events. And as Felix mentioned before, we don't have some money prizes, but we actually give tools and knowledges how to build this resilience and how to make their cities better. And I think this adaptive aspect is the most important, because they can co-create together with other cities, and actually those small cities can build confidence within this project. Because usually we talk about big titles or big cities where everything happens, but actually we should pay more attention to these small and medium-sized cities, and they are really happy or very interested in having this title, because it's also a way how to build confidence not only for municipality level but also for all individuals who live there. And this project also connects cities who face similar challenges, and therefore we together we can recognize not only difficulties we have but also potential in these smaller municipalities. And in this aspect, culture can drive meaningful change. The fourth point is collaboration, creativity and community empowerment, which means that this collaboration happens not only within one sector but actually with several ones, and that's how also community is being involved into city development. And here is the next slide with one also theoretical reference that apart from this tangible value, we have intangible value, and this is exactly what we work with, because we cannot build new cultural houses or give some big grants, but we can just also provide know-how, which means that these values, these intangible values, they promote values such as social inclusion, encourage dialogue, and foster community engagement. And in addition, sustainable human development is often driven and enabled by culture. The next slide, we have, it's a lot of information, but what I want to show, these are 4 examples from the Baltic states with cultural pearls. Smiltene, Petäjäjärvi, Alytus district and Rūjiena. And we see that they have quite similar challenges, which are related to migration, to declining this community engagement, low participation, communities being fragmented, and this lack of local belonging. And what they want to do, what their aims are, is to build a local pride, to strengthen identity, to foster participation, reconnect youth and heritage, and also reduce social inclusion. And as Felix mentioned before, also these cultural action plans can improve well-being of individuals. And so these action plans actually include cultural events, some intergenerational activities between young and old people, and also youth camps and youth-led initiatives. Also neighborhood connections and this cross-border cooperation, and which is very important, also bottom-up community initiatives, actually to educate municipalities and residents how to be more active and how to do things from bottom-up, not only wait for this top-down approach or relying only maybe on management of municipalities. So that would be from my side. Then I think that yes, this adaptive is the first thing, because it's people taking part and peer mentoring, and this transformative is as a result. If communities appreciate culture, which is more than this traditional culture and more than entertainment, and also this individual level is very important, like personal skills. And we have had one webinar which actually talked about soft skill development, about personal leadership, about personal confidence, because it all starts with one human, and we collaborate, and these groups create also bigger changes. And therefore here is this transformative power, as you mentioned before, Kazimierz.
I think one important thing to mention in these 4 cases which you have listed is also that it's an excellent opportunity for them to brand themselves, right? They out of a sudden come as smaller units that would never have a budget to become prominent on the European map or regional map even. And thanks to the project, thanks to the initiative of the local authorities, they are able to say, well, I am here, I am important, and I do a good job, right? You can really learn from us if you want to have something meaningful for the older generation, right? So it's a silver economy in practice sometimes, not in theoretical debates. Schleswig-Holstein, the most political, I would say, and administratively political organization.
Yeah, thank you. So the key challenge of Schleswig-Holstein is that it's on the regional administration level. So a central question is, how can we really reach down to the local level? How can we really reach the people with what we do? Because in general we interact with people more indirectly, and the answer is, or the issue is that we are more responsible to steer and guide the local level and to support them, among other things, politically. So what we can do to influence social resilience is to develop and provide strategies and instruments, and by pushing certain initiatives to enable the local level to strengthen their community resilience, and by that also the resilience of the state of the society of the state of Schleswig-Holstein as a whole. And an important part in doing that is, or a good instrument in doing that, is to involve the local stakeholders from the beginning and to work together with them to develop instruments, strategies and initiatives that really help them and really fit their needs, put them in an active role as early as possible, and to motivate them to take an active participation in these things. I think Cultural Pearls is a good example for this, because we directly connected to and closely worked with the local authorities from the beginning, and we developed and enhanced the project alongside them. We set up an evaluation framework, we got their feedback, and we worked out new frameworks based on the feedback that we got from the first round of the Cultural Pearls. And by that, by doing these initiatives, by enacting the strategies, we help to enable the local level to cope, adapt, and transform. Another interesting point I would like to get at is why transnational cooperation for a regional state such as Schleswig-Holstein is supporting the work we do for example, in the area of social resilience, but also in other areas. And this is because we can, via formats also like BSSE, get into direct contact with entities that are in similar positions as us and also have similar challenges. And it's easier then to exchange best practices and to pool capacities. And by that we can also tackle challenges that are bigger than us, that are on a transnational or even international level, and be, so to say, stronger together. So transnational cooperation is important, and from the point of view of Schleswig-Holstein will get more important as time goes by, as also the global pressure is rising on every level.
Good, thanks. And Krista, I will...
I think, no, I had...
You've got something more to add. Shall we continue on that? Good.
I wanted to get into two more practical examples from Schleswig-Holstein, what we are doing in transnational cooperation, and one is another Interreg Baltic Sea region project called Arts on Prescription, and we're involved in this project via our policy area culture coordination. And this project is catered to people with or at risk of developing mental health conditions. And the goal is that they can receive a prescription for regular art activities offered by community-based service instead of prescriptions for medicine or therapy. And this concept proved to work quite well in some countries already, and now they are aiming to provide the knowledge on how to set up, organize, and integrate this concept into existing healthcare systems already in other states.
It's very interesting because this is like an epitome of what I spoke about, a transition from the social resilience to the societal resilience. It started as a social project to do good to the elderly, do good to the mentally ill people, or to those who have mental problems, and then out of a sudden it turns into a social program for the whole society, or at least for the community where it has been launched.
And for me it's a very good example for the adaptive, like strengthening the adaptive capacities of society, because it's a classical example for learning from past experience, in this case from COVID crisis, and to support the establishment of measures to tackle risks that you already experienced once before. And just another example I brought with me is Fehmarn Belt Days, not so much related to culture, but more related to democracy and society engagement. And And this is more of an example of transformative capacities, because the aim of this transnational democracy festival is to get down to the individual level, to get down to the people and letting them engage directly with the political sphere and get engaged and get involved in policy making.
I can see you've got one more example of the bar camp.
Okay, no, I think that was like when we were talking about.
Okay, good.
That's for another point.
Then we go to the Northern Dimension, Partnership and Culture.
Thank you. So I was thinking I could a bit reflect on our institutional resilience and then how we work for resilience in practice, and then maybe think a bit about the systemic level of the issue. But firstly about NDPC, if we think about ourselves as a small and flexible institution, what I think makes us resilient, or what's in the heart of resilience for us, is that we have a really strong sense of a mission and a really strong sense that we cater for our creative field, for the policymakers who have an effect on the creative field, and we have a quite unique position that we can use. We have a mandate to act. When I talk about NDPC, especially more in the mid-Europe or southern Europe, it is actually quite acknowledged what a unique partnership format we are as a public partnership working for such an innovative cause of connecting arts and culture into sustainability and innovation, and do it in a very practical manner in our region. So, but I think making us resilient as an institution, it comes to being a very close connection to our field, the practitioners, but also the policymakers. We need to stay close to them and hear how we can serve best and what's happening in the field. Thinking, for instance, for COVID-19, how much it had an effect on the cultural and creative field was something that, of course, shaped also our actions and how we serve the creative field with the position we have. But also, of course, this very changed geopolitical stance has an effect on us, and we are a small institution navigating this very difficult situation. And this comes to also the need to stay connected, also to clearly communicate about the value. I don't think any institution in these kind of situations can sit down and expect the position to remain, or for the people to understand what kind of value they bring because they have done it before. We need to keep reframing our message. And for NDPC, our message is not only for the policymakers, but also for the practitioners and the experts developing the arts and culture field, and more now also other sectors. So it's not only a cultural mission, but more and more the cultural topics connect in a very wide way to the whole of society, and we need to be involved in these discussions and promote them as well. So, but then if I take it from us as an institution more to how the creatives work for something like societal resilience, I think this is, we need to be very practical in the actions that we take. So if I told you that NDPC mission is to connect arts and culture and creativity to sustainable development and innovation, that can be a very ideological and nice idea, something quite abstract, but how do we actually take it to the ground and make it something practical? And I think for us, thinking that we are a small institution, how we can really serve best our region can be measured also in the very practical actions and how they take fruit on the ground. So as one example, I wanted to show you about these practical actions. This is from the Cultural Pearls project, and here we have had the role to support the local authorities to work with their creatives in a new goal-setted manner. It could sort of sound easy that the creatives, artists and cultural actors contribute to their community, and all the mentioned levels of it, of building trust and building access to the community, supporting the democratic actions and supporting the well-being and mental health. These are all potentials. They are something that can potentially happen through arts and culture and creativity. But in the Cultural Pearls project, what's been interesting is what is the role of local authorities in enabling these actions, enabling these changes through the collaboration they can establish with their cultural actors. So just to give a bit of background, we do have a quite strong tradition in the municipalities and cities of how we work with cultural field is more about grant giving. So we have a way to hand out art and cultural grants, and that's about it. And that's the way we work with cultural field. But in this project, and more in wide, if we think how culture contributes to societal resilience, to this complex issues that we are tackling with, this is not enough. We cannot, this is not the instrument that actually enables change. But we need to support the local authorities to use the role they have, the mandate they have to develop their societies, their communities, to work jointly with their creatives. And this is a nice idea, but actually what it entails, both from the creative field, but also from the local authorities, is a set of new skills. New skills to collaborate across these disciplines. And for the local authorities, it might not only be about cross-collaborating with the creatives, it is also about cross-collaborating between the departments in their own institutions. And that's hard. And it's something that we need to be aware of. This is the capacity that is needed, this is the skills that we can train, and this is how this change happens. And this seed money initiative roadmap is something we developed within this Pearls project. It's actually a simplified guidebook for the local authorities in these awarded Pearl municipal institutions, that this is how you can establish a cross-collaboration with your creative field. And this is a simple version of it, how you set joint goals, how you evaluate what is actually the mutual goal we are trying to go towards here. How do we set a joint ground for a collaboration? And I think this is in the heart of the change. Here the local authorities, with the power and mandate they have, actually care very much about what the creatives can bring in and see that the skills they have are very valuable now. It is something they cannot achieve without the creative practitioner skills that they bring in. They cannot support their communities like this. And this is actually quite a big systemic change, if I think about it. And at the NDPC, we are really interested about how we support this systemic change, how we support the creatives to step into these eye-level collaborations. We are talking about powerful contexts, not only the fragile context, where we could say that the end user of the cultural activity, it might be the mentally ill, it might be the elderly people, children. This is something we have adopted now in Europe. We can see that the discourse has really taken root, that arts and culture contribute. But actually we need to keep on talking about this powerful context. They are contexts where policies are taken. It is the places where communities are developed, and how artists and cultural actors enter these in an eye-level manner, how their skills are valid and how they can be integrated. So I think this, the Cultural Pearls project is one very practical mission to support this capacity in our region. And here we come also, if we think about the systemic change, this is something that no nation can do alone. This is very specific skills. It is quite in the margin also of fundings, who funds this kind of exploratory missions. And we are very much dependent on transnational exchange in what are the best practices, how we collaborate, and how we share the knowledge. And this is also where I think that our region can and already has a lot of how would I say, a lot to contribute to whole of Europe as one great area where this change is happening, how arts and culture contribute to these societal issues like social resilience building. So there's a lot of know-how that we are actually now building, and the Pearls project is just one good example of it.
Thank you very much for this tale of the Northern Dimension Partnership on Culture, because if we go to the constellation of partners, I think you see already how different we are, and that hardly any place, apart from perhaps the Council of the Baltic Sea States being placed in Stockholm, hardly any other place is really in the big cities. Of course, you have your offices in Riga, but you are very much active in the countryside, you are very much active in smaller communities. One issue which you haven't touched upon, and which I think is very interesting, is that culture can bridge the linguistic barriers. In some communities, especially when you have multilingual challenges, I would put it like that, culture can bridge them easier. You can have choirs, you can have ensembles playing instruments, regardless of the language the musicians speak, and I think this is a truly palpable example of how culture can overcome certain apparently unbridgeable differences in the society. But this is just a side remark, and when I look at the number of the partners who are listed here, especially probably this has, to me, it has been manifested in Ostrobotnia and in the cities of Vasa and Jakobstad, where you really have the Swedish-speaking minority being a majority in the cities or in the communities, and then, well, this poses a challenge for the local authorities. And I'm sure there are many other places in the Baltic Sea region where we have similar phenomenon, where multi-language communities have to, well, somehow live together, and in those times where we have many challenges, become more resilient. Now, what I'd like to do is to ask you in the audience to explore some of the culture for resilience issues with us. And I'm sure you have seen the term resilience before, you are using it yourself in your research, you are referring to the publications, and the question is, what kind of recommendations could be there from the field of science? I mean, we are talking sometimes about science diplomacy, where science should also deliver to the public understanding of the social life. To what extent you would say you have come across resilience, and how does it resonate? What are the recommendations from your research field to what you have heard? Is anybody who is ready to share with us?
Maybe I could be the warmer. I could warm up this discussion, because I'm also, my other hat is academic field, and I'm doing my PhD. And there are two theoretical concepts, I think, which are really related to this resilience concept. First of all is that culture often creates wider benefits, or they are said to be spillover effects. So if we talk about improvements in cultural and creative industries, that can also impact positively tourism, education, social care, and community well-being. Also, this fosters collaboration, and which means also these cultural and creative intermediaries. Many people in these small and mid-sized cities even don't realize that they actually do some things, that they bring people together and they make things happen. And this intermediaries concept actually is really interesting from a theoretical point of view. And the third concept is, actually I have three, not two, that this increased cultural life and investment in this cultural and creative field creates not only spillover effects, but it can foster lifestyle migration. And lifestyle migration means that choices to change your place of residence are not forced, but it's your free choice. That, for example, we would like to have more access to natural resources, or it's just a nicer city, or we want to escape the capitals. And actually these small and mid-sized cities can attract new residents, and this is a cumulative process. If there are more and more these creative and cultural residents, this will be attracting even more of them. We can see it in Latvia. We have a small city, Cēsis, which is considered to be a creative city because it has done it in strategic way, and it attracts more and more these creative people with events, and this is like a process. That's maybe it from me, and I would like to give floor to you. Thank you.
Have we got somebody providing experience from your field on the issue of resilience? You've got the mic back there.
Okay, thanks. Damian Szacawa, Marek Skłodowska University and the Institute of Central Europe. So maybe I will start from a brief observation that usually here, even here in Cambridge, we are talking about traditional understanding of security. And what you are doing is soft security, so the other dimension. The other, let's say, dimension is that you are talking on regional identity and regional culture supported by national and local, even local initiatives. So it means that we often think about social resilience as a national category, but then, at least at the political level, recently we are talking that here in the Baltic Sea region we are like-minded countries. And this is the main observation between political leaders, between prime ministers, between foreign ministers, that we are understanding without saying any word. We perceive the same, let's say, threats. We have the same perception of Russia's behavior, and so on and so on. And now through this project, you create, let's say, another layer, social layer, of supporting these actions by decision makers with local initiatives, with local actions. So maybe I think that we need a little bit more time to observe the results, actually. And strategic communication of such projects would be of great importance. But yeah, so maybe I will stop here with short comments. So, and the main recommendation is we need some similar actions.
I don't think we couldn't agree more on that, right? But yes.
So to follow on to that point, one thing which, to introduce myself, Ben Gardner-Gill with the Association for the Advancement of Baltic Studies. To follow on to that point, to what are we building resilience against? To go back to Kazimierz's initial point, the initial definition of resilience is you are bouncing back from something. And if we are building in these contexts of the current geopolitical moment, if we are building in the context of thinking of resilience as soft security, are we also, through these initiatives, building a resilience which could then be resilient against something else that would come against the community? Let's say a natural disaster, right? Something which is not man-made. Take any example. Does this transfer across other potential issues? That's a genuine question, not a rhetorical question.
It's a very good question. Perhaps we can answer that, and then we'll go, unless it is very tightly related.
Maybe I would rather have all attention focused
Okay, good.
on me.
Then let's,
so maybe you can just address this question.
let's short circuit now, and then we'll let you. Felix, would you like to answer that?
I can attempt, at least from my perspective, I would say that yes, that is definitely the intention, and the security perspective on this has obviously been reinforced by the geopolitical developments, but I would say it would be equally relevant in the complete absence of military conflict in Europe. Precisely because of that. I mean, in a sense, even without, like I mentioned in the beginning, even without COVID, migration, war in Ukraine, etc., many of these places are struggling. And you can call it revitalization, you can call it, I don't know, investment into social structures, whatever I mean, essentially it's about people wanting to be in the place, feeling connected to their neighbor, and not only coping or adapting, but wanting to be part of shaping the future of that place. That transformative capability or capacity, yeah.
Zanete and then Franziska.
Thank you for a question. Actually, I wanted to add that resilience would mean not only to be against, but also for. That would mean an ability to live with uncertainty, which we are living with. So that's a question, whether it's against, whether it's for, and I think we also we help people actually to cope with this fear of uncertainty we are living in now. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a little bit connecting to what you just said, and so far as I think it's transferable because it's referring in the end to the mental level, to the individual level, to how the mind of the individual is also coping with external shocks and reacting to external shocks, and to strengthen the general mindsets of people can help them to tackle a big variation of different external shocks. And culture can especially help there, because I also understand culture as some kind of playing field, as some kind of field for simulation, and also a field that is existing a little bit parallel to the reality, where you can tackle problems, social problems, other problems in a more indirect way to learn to cope with them. For example, you can tackle your mental issues via a creative method, tackle your fears by drawing them, by playing out narratives in your mind, and also maybe with the narratives prepare yourself for the eventual situation in reality.
Mm-hmm. Krista?
Yeah, I would like to bring into the conversation, I think, Kazimierz, it's you who have brought in this social glue concept, like how culture works like a social glue. And I'm thinking about bouncing back, like when do we need this kind of social glue? And if I just think a bit further, so okay, arts and culture, it's a really wide concept, but especially then activities that are very low threshold. We are talking about socially engaged community, cultural activities that actually extend to be participated by them in our communities that are a lot left out. So we can maybe think that the cultural activities are a way to somehow bridge to them in our community that are in the danger of being excluded. So okay, in the times of disasters, in the time of need of bouncing back, how does that glue work? Like, what's the role of that we have a sense, we have a connection, we know who are here. So that's maybe some thought that I tend to think about, and we all remember COVID freshly, how the sense of the community was highlighted in that crisis. And it is the cultural activities that bring the community together. But I would say that this would need research.
It would need research, but I think what one can take home from what you have just said, if I can subsume it, it's a resilience for and not resilience against. And that's a powerful disposition that we develop in our minds and in our worldview. If once we have it for one thing, then it may be a natural calamity the other day, right? And we still have a glue for the community. I think Miłosz?
Just a little.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I think that's the difference between acting and reacting. Like in the one case, you're more in a passive role. You're reacting to what comes from the outside, and you empower yourself in saying, we built that up, we're active, without the external shocks pressing us to do that.
Right, right. Let's pass the voice. The microphone is there, it's there. No, it's been like just for a while.
Thank you. And thank you for this panel. My name is Miłosz Kores, DIS Copenhagen. I wanted to come back to what Damian already hinted at. So the question of this broader understanding of security and what you as CBSS has been doing together with your partners around the region to bring about this understanding of security, not only understood as hard security, military power, but also this broader societal resilience. I remember that in 2023 in Munich at the Munich Security Conference, there was a panel about the Baltic Sea security, which was attended by 3 people. And one of the panelists said that for a long time there had been this conviction in Europe and also in the transatlantic community that the Baltic Sea had fallen victim to its own success. Meaning so many infrastructural connections, ferry connections, energy market, most of the region, most but not all of the region being in NATO and the EU, and now we're coming back to this different understanding that there's still so much work that needs to be done, not only to bring that regional integration to a higher level, but also to maintain or to sustain what's already been achieved. And I mention this because I happen to travel with my American students to Lübeck, and it's a fantastic place. Schleswig-Holstein is absolutely fantastic, mind-blowing. But when we go, we also see a lot of these shortcomings on the way. We take the ferry from Rülby to Fehmarn, to Puttgarten, and we see that the tunnel is still not there. And then we talk about it, and our students realize that it's actually more the German side that for a long time had been reluctant about bringing that project forward. So there are still all those pockets where maybe a bit more coordination is lacking. And my question to you is, how do you feel that you contribute to overcoming these challenges or these problems, or maybe these little elements that are still lacking in our understanding of the Baltic Sea region as our common region, which requires a bit of grooming, a bit of cuddling, I would say, to keep it as nice as it is, and maybe to respond to all these challenges that we see now with 9 countries of the region, plus Iceland, being there closer together, but Russia, significant gap, being further away from us?
It's a tough question. Who wants to take? Let's start with Zanete and then Franziska.
And then there will be a question, I think, also from the man in the back. There is one thing that I would like to express is this social cohesion. And I would like to share also my personal experience. I work with this project for 1 year, and actually understanding between us has been changing significantly. If a year ago we also see that maybe people in western part wouldn't believe those things what eastern part was warning about, and now we have learned that now we have a little bit, we have adjusted to each other. And this is not only in a project team level, but also as we have these cities, they also have this peer learning also about the regions themselves internally. So this would be my part of the answer about social cohesion, what the project is also fostering.
Yeah, I would have, I think, a few points to make. I think the first thing we can provide is awareness that there is the other. Yes, it makes sense to think about which system the Swedish railway is using if you want to establish a train connection that goes from Germany straight up to Stockholm, and if you want to people not having to change in Malmö because you didn't use the same train system. So raise awareness that it makes sense that there is something to gain if you cooperate between each other, then to provide forums and formats to the relevant people to meet each other, to meet up, for example, in the transport administratives, the people who are responsible for the strategies, who are responsible for the organization, give them the possibility to meet up, give them the formats, and then also not only to provide these formats, but also to actively bring them in, to actively contact them, to actively engage them in this cooperation would be another thing that we could do, that we can do, and that we do with our work, I think.
Krista?
I'll just add that also in the PEARLS project and in the common work, I'm a big believer in this dialogues between our countries, and it's person to person, and how we can actually not only maintain but spark and so see the value of these exchanges. In the PEARLS project, I can see, and in our various projects, that collaboration within our Baltic Sea region, it's actually quite easy. We have such a lot of history and common culture and value base that we can quite fast understand each other and just get on to the mission. And so I think there's like a lot of capacity for collaboration and how we can spark these connections. And also I think in the cities, municipalities, in the PEARL project, it is giving a lot of value, getting this peer dialogue across the countries. It's a valuable thing, and when they are established, the projects, they die out, but these contacts, they do maintain themselves. People are connected and they have that connection. So whatever that can facilitate forward these possibilities, I think is valuable.
And I just thought of another point that I forgot. We can also lobby for cooperation with our political leaders, which we try every day, like with engaging in this cooperation. We're also lobbying for it and pushing the idea forward.
I don't want you to have an impression that we are skipping your question about Russia and the Russian components, but I think we would have opened a Pandora's box if we started that. Suffice to say that I think for our talk about a resilient region and cohesion in the region, Russia is a factor from being a problematic factor before to becoming a constitutive factor by becoming the other, right? Which for quite some time was not acknowledged, was not fitting to the main narrative of Baltic Sea regionalism. Now it has become the mainstream, something that, is actually contributing to a greater cohesion and forging of a common narrative because of Russia being outside is easier in a way, even though it is not necessarily the optimal shape of the region that we get through that. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Marcin Fronio. I represent the Polish Academy of Science in Berlin. And just have a few questions. I don't know how much time we have, but just to brief, also to answering to your question for recommendation, and the second question about the Russian aggression in Ukraine and the consequences in the Baltic Sea region societies. And what you already said about your project, I would ask maybe, and you ask about the recommendation, I would ask about the concept of preparedness, because I appreciate very much the Finnish society and the doctrine of total preparedness of the society, and we saw the reaction of Swedish and Finnish society after the Russian aggression, and very fast changes in the society, polls, and then political decision of joining NATO by Finland and then Sweden. So my question is to you, do you use in your cultural project of social resilience the concept of preparedness? And if yes, how it could be adapted? Because as we saw how the war in Ukraine is going on, so it will be, if it comes to the real threat from Russia to the Baltic Sea region countries, it will be not the direct confrontation maybe with the military contact with the Russian army at the first, but some kind of the consequences of the hybrid threats. So the concept of preparedness assumes that society is prepared for different various acts of hybrid threats, like cyber attacks or infrastructure and so on. So do you and you already mentioned the awareness, rising awareness of the crisis situation in the society. So do you think that it could be also good to adapt this concept of preparedness for the crisis situation in the project from the cultural perspective to support the culture of social resilience? So the first question, maybe long but to the point. The second one is to the panelists from Schleswig-Holstein, because you mentioned the dumping munition is one of the topic you deal with. Do you know or do you have any Polish partners, or do you know any example of the cooperation with Polish partners? I know that the Academy of Firefighters in Poland is very much interested in the cooperation in this subject. So if you have any examples, so could you elaborate more about this? Thank you.
Preparedness and resilience.
I can maybe, from the perspective of looking at how arts and culture has a contribution to the society and the discourses around this, I would say that in the past 10 years we are talking more about the role of arts and culture in stability building, in resilience building, even conflict resolution. But the topic of preparedness is not on the agenda yet, but thinking where we are now, I would expect it to sort of land in this discussion and then sort of grow into it within the coming years. But I haven't seen it around in this sort of field of arts and culture in this goal-setted societal developments.
Before I let Franziska answer the question of the dumped munition in Schleswig-Holstein, I think we might also consider the issue of resilience as being a frame of mind, a certain capacity, whereas preparedness is the actual action or a set of actions towards fulfilling the goal of becoming or having a resilient society. And then the whole of society approach is trying to encompass both narratives of preparedness, very practical elements, and resilience, a disposition to act in a certain manner and to, deploy it when the need comes, right? Mm-hmm.
I think the short answer is, no, we're not dealing with preparedness directly, because I think that is exactly what the others are doing, in a sense. I mean, that is very much within the mandate of the civil contingencies agencies or things like that, or even on the local level. There's a clear plan in Sweden, in Finland, of who goes where, when, and et cetera, et cetera. We're talking about the step before, during, and after, I think, which is much bigger than which shelter you run to, or which factory you go to, or where you leave your car in case the military needs it. Perhaps you could call it a mental preparedness. I think it reminds me of Alexander Stubb in his New Year's speech. He spoke about national security being more than these things, but it's also including culture and education, and he called it a mental security of supply for the nation.
Yes.
I think maybe that points towards a direction at least.
It's a bait for new research, really. New research area. Damp munitions.
Yeah, I know that we have, in fact, or I'm pretty sure that we have, in fact, more than one partner in Poland we are working together with. In this short span of time, I could just research one, and that's UPAN. The thing is, I'm not an expert on damp munitions. I'm the expert for culture from our unit. But we had them for a roundtable at the last BSSC annual conference, and I know that we had and have, in fact, Interact Baltic Sea region projects where we are cooperating with partners from all over the Baltic Sea region. And as it is a core project, there has to be a Polish partner, but I wasn't.
Institute of Oceanology from Gdańsk. It's the Polish Academy of Sciences as well.
Yeah. The thing is also that it's not. We are engaged in the Baltic Sea region cooperation unit, but the topic has been taken up by our Ministry for Environment and by the institute, the Geoma Institute. So they are mainly carrying out the actions and carrying out the concrete work in this field. But I know for a fact this work is carried out not as a single state or a single nation, but as a macro-regional, as an issue that is tackled from the whole area. And I also know that there are some states who are more skeptical than others, but it is met with.
I think it's fair to say that there is quite an extensive collaboration on the part of the Council of the Baltic Sea States as well in this domain, and there are our colleagues in the priority area Safe and Secure region who are participating in the working groups. So if you have a question, you can direct it directly to our colleagues in this priority area, and I'm sure they will be able to tell exactly which Polish institution for how long has participated and which has been active, and so on and so forth. It's 15:02 or 3:02. We are in Britain, and I think it's been a fine roundtable. We have been prepared with one more activity in the end, which we won't be able to run, perhaps at another occasion. But I would like to thank you, all participants in the roundtable, Felix, Krista, Zanete, and Franziska, and myself, Kazimierz Musiał, on behalf of the Council of the Baltic Sea States. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you.